Well, this Facebook Live is about cats, and I'm calling it Cats Gone Wild. And that's because, well, they actually are. You know, some people think many cats are cream puffs, and maybe some are, but mine aren't. We have Gaston here and Tony, who'll show up in just a minute. They're certainly pets, but they're pets masquerading as wild cats because, you know, they can do just great on their own in the wild. And if they're indoors, they need to have the behavioral advantages. They need to have the ability to just invest themselves in who they really are. Would you carry that little biscuit there? Not a boy. Okay? So what we're going to do here is try to figure out what to do with these problems, these behavior problems that we could actually fix just by letting cats be cats inside. Well, in case we haven't met, I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. I'm a veterinarian, and I'm residency trained in veterinary behavior medicine. My clinical practice is entirely behavior disorders of cats and dogs, although many, many years of general medicine, so I'm kind of versed in all of it. And what I find when I see cats whose behaviors involve a lot of aggression, many times towards other cats in the home, or towards their people, is very often a problem of cats not getting their needs met. So let's see what we can do about that. I'd like to start with a story of a cat named Dandelion. These names have not been changed to protect the innocent because actually, well, two of the cats are, one of them is not. Anyway, Dandelion was 5 years old when her folks brought her in to see me. Spayed female, had been adopted at a shelter about a year earlier, and the breed listed on the shelter's paperwork was large barn cat. Now, I've never heard of a cat of the breed large barn cat, but that's sort of what Dandelion looked like. And Dandelion moved in with a household of two other cats. One was Pussy Willow, and the other was Cinnamon. Well, it didn't take long for these three indoor cats, who, by the way, might have been allowed outside, except this family lived in a house with a decent-sized yard, but right across the street from a school on a real busy street. So, you know, this was going to be a problem, they felt, so they kept their cats indoors. And by the way, if you like this Facebook Live, if this is helpful to you, please hit the wow button or put some hearts on there or something like that. And if you have comments or questions, I invite you to interrupt me anytime, because these are things that give me an opportunity to address specific problems. So we have Dandelion here, who not long after she moved in started chasing the other cats, and Pussy Willow in particular. Dandy would sometimes chase her up the cat tree and stalk her to the top of the cat tree, scare the daylights out of her, swinging at her and biting and hissing, and her people had to, you know, rescue this situation. Cinnamon was one who had these furtive and quick movements because she was scared to death of Dandelion a lot of the time and would, you know, kind of run away, and sometimes Dandy would chase her until Cinnamon found a place to hide where she couldn't get molested. And this was really just a miserable situation, and the family was unhappy too. Nobody wants to see their cat scared or injured, that kind of stuff, and that kind of aggression and hostility is pretty unsettling. So, anybody relate to that? I don't know if you've seen problems like that. Let me know, because, you know, they're all just a little bit different. So, what did these cats need? Well, they needed more climbing trees. This family already had one, but, you know, the truth is you go to places like pet supply stores, and they have a generous variety of them that are all of 4 feet tall, 3 feet tall. And cats really need to get up high. The higher the better. So you need one that's all the way to the ceiling, located against a window, and on the outside of the window, if there isn't a tree right there with lots of bird activity, then you need to stick a birdhouse or a bird feeder. They have suction cups on these to be intended to be stuck to the outside of the exterior window. And the cats, you can put a little one-way mirror there so that the cats can watch the birds, you know, feeding their young and all that stuff. And the birds can be just a couple inches away on the inside of the window, chattering and slathering. And you think, gosh, wouldn't that be like frustrating for the cat? But it's actually, from the cat's perspective and from its behavioral health, it's a totally legitimate predatory experience. Tony, are you coming up now? There you are. Good boy. Here comes Tony. So they needed several of those in different rooms, one in each of several rooms in the house. They also needed places that these cats could get away from each other. They needed solitude. Cats are certainly capable of having social relationships with other cats in their home, but these particular cats, they especially needed to get the heck away from each other, and hide boxes are so valuable. We've all heard the old joke about how do you trap a cat? Well, you just put a box out or a paper bag on its side. Well, they need boxes at different heights in different rooms. And the opening to the cat box, whether it's on a shelf or a counter or way up on the, above a cabinet, for example, some way of getting up there is helpful. But if the opening to the box is turned away from the middle of the room, then the cat can crawl in there believing nobody knows he's there and nobody's staring at him, and they can just kick back and have some solitude, which all of these cats needed. Obviously, Cinnamon and Pussy Willow needed a break from, that pushy tyrant, Dandy. But Dandy also needed that kind of thing. None of these cats had their needs adequately met, although the people thought they were, but they needed a lot more what we call environmental enrichment. Well, so what else can we do for them? Well, if we've got one cat who's still getting bullied, and this was the case with Cinnamon, because Dandy would chase Cinnamon up, anywhere, or Pussy Willow for that matter. What I encouraged these folks to do was to contact the Invisible Fence Company, because they can set up what's called an indoor avoidance shield at the doorway or the opening into a hallway into one part of the house, so that the cat who's not wearing the receiver collar has free choice to go anywhere in the house, but the bully is restricted from accessing the safe area of the house. And that can really provide a lot of peace. So, what else? Well, let's remember that cats are predators. And some, there are food toys, for example. This is a twist and treat toy. And I will show you another one in just a minute with dry food in a jar. But you see these things, you can put dry food in these, you can put canned food in them. They're actually meant for dogs, but they have this funky shape, and cats can have a challenging time moving this thing around. And if we have dry food in a jar here, you might find somebody like Gaston who would do what it takes to, here, let me turn it around so people can actually see this thing. Here you go, Gaston. Attaboy. And they will reach into that thing and try to pull out the food and figure it out. And many times people will hide these things under furniture, and they'll measure part of the cat's ration into a toy like this, so that the cat has to work for its food. Because yeah, they're hunters, without doubt they're hunters, but they will scavenge. In other words, they'll try to look for the prey, and they'll sometimes eat stuff that isn't even alive. Okay? Not anymore anyway. There you go, boys. Okay? So, this is a simple food dispensing device that you can make at home. Well, just last week, in fact, I spent the entire week in Washington, D.C., and a big part of that was the International Veterinary Behavior Meeting. And there was papers of current research being presented on all manner of different topics having to do with behavioral research and neuropathology and psychopharmacology and all the things that specialists need to understand and be up to date with. Well, one of the things that I found in my meetings and networking with my colleagues is I met a doctor new to me. Her name is Dr. Liz Bales. And Liz has a company called Doc and Phoebe's. And let me show you this thing. I'm going to turn this around so you can see it right there. And it says, I'm not a dog. And that seems kind of silly, but and it's called an indoor hunting feeder is what this thing is called. And her company is Doc and Phoebe's. And you can get these things on Amazon like everything else. Well, excuse me, Tony T, I need to sit back down there, you little rascal. Attaboy. So anyway, Dr. Bales develops this toy. You can see it right there, and I'm going to show it and demonstrate it with my two cats in just a minute. And these things, if you can see them, these are fabric mice, and inside that is this plastic reservoir that's intended for dry food. And if I could have a mouse right now from my lovely assistant, here it is right here, and this is what it looks like. And it's got this covering you put on here, and inside we've put some dry food. So, gentlemen, please demonstrate for our friends what it's like to forage from the indoor hunting feeder. I keep calling it a feeding mouse. Anyway, what's beneficial about this, compared to a glass jar, is that, well, it looks just like a mouse. And could I have another one, Carolyn, the second one that has the dry food in it? Anyway, I had the cloth covering off this thing, and Tony was going after that thing. And here's Gaston. I don't know if you can see him very well. I tend not to handle my cats when they're enjoying one of these feeders, because they do get into a predatory mindset, in part because this thing looks like there we go. I mean, it looks just like the mouse itself. And they get too darn predatory in their mindset, and they will redirect toward my hand. And when a cat is hunting and engaging in predatory behavior, it's an entirely mental mindset, and they need to be able to do their job. So you see two cats here. You can see Tony back here. So Carolyn, would you pass me the one that's got the canned food in it? Now these two boys, Gaston and Tony, typically eat. Tony, eat. Here, look, baby. Whoops. Here, Gaston. Try. Anyway, then the nice thing about them being made for dry food is that they don't make much mess. And these cats love dry food because they hardly ever get it, because we feed them canned food to keep their weight controlled. But but you can put canned food in this thing, and I have frozen this with canned food in it. Gaston, are you interested in this, baby? Whoop. Tony's throwing his mouse around. I think you have to do that if you're a cat. Gaston, here, baby. Tony, what do you think about the frozen stuff? Says, oh, well, I think I might work on that. And, here's the thing. Many times people say, well, my cats are strictly indoors. How am I going to keep them occupied? Well, this certainly does that. And many times people use the term boredom to try to understand why these pets do things that, they really shouldn't be doing inside a house. Well, boredom is really the wrong word, because they actually need very specific activities that are particular to their species, and cats are inveterate, absolutely committed predators. They're obligate predators, and their natural diet is nothing but other creatures. They're supposed to be, he says, I'm kind of interested in more of these things. There you go, he's already knocked over the jar. They're supposed to be figuring out how to catch prey. And if they're indoors, this indoor hunting feeder from Doc and Phoebe's is really a great way to do it. And you can see these two cats are knocking these over and working this thing, and it actually gives them activity. And so once your cat gets pretty accustomed to this thing, you can hide it under furniture and make it pretty challenging. In fact, if you have a bunch of them and they come through to a box here, you come home sometimes and your cat wasn't able to actually get one that you hid it a little bit too well. Well, that's okay, because they were working for it and they were, investing themselves in this thing. So I'm a big believer in this. But, don't forget there's lots of other things that a cat should be doing with predatory type stuff. And these guys are so interested in these feeder mice, I don't think they're going to play with a feathers on a stick toy. Actually, it's a fish on a stick. But this kind of toy is best managed in the evening when your cats are in predatory mindset. You can use these indoor hunting feeders twice a day, but they mostly will go after predatory toys in the evening. And there's other things like cat grass that you can get. You can put dry food in a paper envelope and seal it, stick it closed, and you can hide that under furniture. And cats will forage and find those things and tear up the paper. I mean, you can throw it away when you're done. Anything your cat can do to have to work for the food, which you can see Tony doing back here, that's what you want them to do. And they feel better because they're allowed to be who they need to be. And one last thing I'm going to mention, this is a book that I often show pet parents, and I'll turn the camera around so you can see this. This is called The Cat's House, by a man named Bob Walker. And Bob Walker, he has had no training, formal training in feline behavior. He and his wife are just cat people, and turned the inside of his house into kind of a feline wonderland. And so besides having indoor hunting feeders and feathers on a stick and tall climbing trees and hide boxes, if you can use some of the ideas in this book, he even has areas in the book where he shows how you build this stuff if you're interested. And you can see, like, for example, here's a ramp these cats go up and down. Anyway, these cats can never go outside. So let me, I got a question here. Oh, Linda, the mouse feeder sounds like a great product. I have an indoor cat and I like learning about ways to enrich their life. Absolutely. You know, it's not only fun to give cats things that are very much natural to them, but they are, boy, you know, they need that. And if we don't provide them feline-specific opportunities to do what cats do, we're really essentially requiring them to live in a barren environment, and none of us would intend that. It just takes an understanding of what their needs are and how to fulfill them inside a house. Here's a letter, a question that I got, or a comment, maybe is more accurate, from one of the folks who visits my Facebook page. It starts out with, Dr. Nickel, I am a state and federally permitted wild bird rehabilitator in Corrales. This is a little agricultural village outside of Albuquerque. I've been brought hundreds of birds rescued from cats. All too many have lived through the initial attack only to succumb while in my care. Here we are in the middle of baby bird season with parent birds trying their best to repopulate from last year's losses. This is one area where every pet owner can affect ecological damage by responsibly containing their own pets. No domestic cat should be allowed to wander and kill our native wildlife. And I totally appreciate that sentiment. Whoops, hang on there, Gaston. And so if your cats are indoors, they can really essentially enjoy just about all the benefits of being outside without being harassed by other cats because they're too crowded. You can mitigate that with lots of vertical real estate. You can put steps up your wall. I mean, you can just go wild like Bob Walker in his book, The Cat's House. And you can do things like the indoor hunting feeder, which is kind of fun. And in fact, these two cats of mine, whoops, I had dry cat food all over the room now. This little fabric mouse here, they've even found that interesting because it looks like a mouse. So thank you very much. Do I have one more question? Oh, please add the link in the description. I certainly will. Thank you for that reminder, Linda. I appreciate it. I'll be back next week. I didn't do a Facebook Live last week because I was in Washington, D.C. trying to get smart, learn all that. I took a lot of notes. Now I have to study that stuff. But we're going to do one on dogs next week. I haven't decided exactly what the topic's going to be. But if anybody has a question after this Facebook Live, by all means, send it to me on Facebook. And we'll try to educate people and bring out the best in our pets. And then they can live peacefully together and have a fulfilled life without being a danger to wild birds outside, or without getting into a busy street, or getting chased down by dogs or something else, because believe me, I've dealt with that in my emergency work. We don't want that. So feel free, please, to share this with any of your cat-loving friends. Almost any cat parent, unless it is a barn cat who, you know, if it's a pet cat, people need to understand these kinds of things. So by all means, share this information. And by the way, if you go to my website, which is drjeffnickel.com, drjeffnicchol.com, you can find just an enormous quantity of information on cats, both behavioral and other medical issues. And it's searchable, so you can put anything in there, and you'll find my newspaper columns, my media from many, many years back, addressing just about everything. And you'll also see my past videos on these kinds of things and Facebook Lives on cats and dogs. And if you subscribe, which is free, then I'll send you at no charge my at-home pet first aid and CPR guide. And I hope that is never necessary, but it can save a life. So thank you for watching. And Tony and Gaston, thank you as well. I would have Miss America, the Nickel Family Border Collie, up here with us, but she tends to believe that anything resembling food is hers. And she's never been dangerous to our cats, but she has, well, she's issued a few invectives and four-letter words, and you know how we feel. We don't want that. We don't want our cats' feelings hurt. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next week.